The Waza National Park is one of those places on Earth with stuff you never imagine you might have the chance to see. Lions and hyenas and giraffes and gazelles. Waza is here in West Africa, in far northern Cameroon, where Cameroon makes a little stovepipe between the nation of Chad, which is on one side, and the nation of Nigeria on the other. You see that up at the top there? Just north of there is another national park, which is known for its elephants. Yeah, the whole little stovepipe in this part of Western Africa, it has wildlife you cannot see anywhere else in the world. Last year, 7 members of a French family who'd been living in Cameroon, they were kidnapped there. They were on their way from one of those national parks to the other one. 3 adults and 4 children. They were abducted by men on motorcycles. They're believed to have been carried across the border from Cameroon into Nigeria, where a terrorist group called Boko Haram has its base. Boko Haram kept that French family in captivity for 2 months. The adults in the family doing the best they could to keep everyone alive until they could be rescued. Finally, it was April 2013 when they were all released, all alive, reportedly in exchange for a ransom of $3 million, though it is not clear who paid it. The deal also reportedly included the release of 16 Boko Haram prisoners who were being held by Cameroon. What you see here is news footage of that family, that French family, going home after their 2 months being held by that terrorist group. The terrorist group had also released video of the family in captivity while they were still being held hostage. I have made a decision that we are not going to show you that. It had surely and has intelligence value for those fighting Boko Haram, for people trying to get them to stop doing stuff like this or rescue hostages in a case like that. It does not, though, have news value beyond us knowing that that hostage tape exists. The reason I think it doesn't have news value to show that hostages in captivity video is because the point of Boko Haram having done that video is to terrify us. Right? They do horrific things and publicize these horrific things as widely as they can to shock, to terrorize, and to make the legitimate government of their country look weak in order to undermine that legitimate government so they, the terrorist group, have a better chance of taking over in that country. That is the basic recipe of terrorism. And as always and as everywhere, it is disgusting. And now today, Boko Haram has released a new video. And we're not going to show you that video either for the same reason. In the video today, they demand the release of Boko Haram prisoners from Nigeria. They're demanding the release of those prisoners in exchange for the hundreds of teenage schoolgirls that they have been holding hostage in Nigeria now for almost a month. The new video shows the kidnapped girls sitting out in the scrub, praying. If you want to take hope from the news today, and I think sometimes hope does matter, then that video at least offers proof of life for the girls, right? Sometime after they were taken by this terrorist group, they were alive, and more than 100 of them at least were together, and that's good. Boko Haram has done this and is bragging about it for international attention and to terrorize. The story is, of course, having a very large international impact. There have been protests in Nigeria, in other places in Africa, and around the world. And this weekend, there was this from the First Lady of the United States.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Obama, and on this Mother's Day weekend, I want to take a moment to honor all the mothers out there and wish you a happy Mother's Day. I also want to speak to you about an issue of great significance to me as First Lady, and more importantly, as the mother of 2 young daughters. Like millions of people across the globe, my husband and I are outraged and heartbroken over the kidnapping of more than 200 Nigerian girls from their school dormitory in the middle of the night. I hope that any young people in America who take school for granted, any young people who are slacking off or thinking about dropping out, I hope they will learn the story of these girls and recommit themselves to their education. These girls embody the best hope for the future of our world, and we are committed to standing up for them, not just in times of tragedy or crisis, but for the long haul.
That's an unusual event this weekend. The president's weekly address this weekend delivered by the First Lady, delivered from the White House, urging American solidarity with a story unfolding thousands of miles away. And in terms of the American response, in concrete terms, the White House today described the constituents of the U.S. team that has been sent to Nigeria to try to help that country's government and military find those girls. The area they're searching is an area roughly the size of New England. Before now, the White House has described that team as a coordination cell, which is a term that I don't understand, even after several days now of Googling it. The White House announced today some more detail, though. They said they're sending 5 officials from the State Department, including experts in communications and security and a medical officer. They will work alongside 10 planners and advisors from the Pentagon who are stationed in Nigeria already. Another 7 Pentagon advisors are joining the team from AFRICOM, which is the U.S. Military Command for Africa. And this is interesting. The U.S. is also sending 4 people from the FBI with skills in hostage negotiation and hostage recovery. So that's some of what the White House means when they say coordination cell. But what else can we tell from that list about the American approach to this act of terrorism? How does the U.S. government train its experts to deal with this? Does the particular expertise and training represented in this list they gave us today give us any clues as to how this international crisis gets resolved? Are Americans particularly good at this? Can we learn from previous experiences? Can we glean enough information about what we're doing to understand with any certainty how they might try to get those girls back? What might happen next, and what kind of work might already be underway? What should we expect here? Joining us now is Michael Leiter. He's former director of the National Counterterrorism Center. Mr. Leiter, thanks very much for being with us. Appreciate your time.
Good to be here, Rachel.
So looking at that list about the personnel that is going and what we know is the broad goal, what should we understand about the American approach to a terrorist hostage situation? I imagine that the U.S. official government position is that we don't negotiate with terrorists, but what does that mean on the ground?
Well, the U.S. does have a very strict policy of no negotiation with terrorists, and that isn't something that this group will really be doing, at least in the sense of we're not going to be saying, well, if you hand over 50, we'll release some of the prisoners in Nigeria. What this coordination cell will do, and by coordination cell, it's really a group which is going to coordinate all of the operations to try to help the Nigerians. It's really going to have 3 principal functions. 1, intelligence to help try to find the hostages and understand kind of the capabilities that Boko Haram has. Second, it will have the FBI people in particular, experts who can help the Nigerians and guide any sort of discussions they have with Boko Haram. Again, not saying we'll give you one if you give us one, but at least talking to them, understanding what the possibilities are. And third, the one which I think isn't very likely, but we have to be ready for it and work with the Nigerians to do it, a group from the Department of Defense to actually go in and do some sort of hostage rescue. So that's really what this coordination cell is meant to try to provide, the capability and expertise working hand in hand with the Nigerians.
Is this a situation where we should expect that talks may already be underway that are being kept from the public? You keep hearing sort of unsourced descriptions of what's already happening in Nigeria, that there may be people who are already in touch with this group, and so some sort of at least informal talks may already be happening?
I expect that's the case. And again, I think because of the political dynamic in Nigeria and our policy and the Nigerian policy of not negotiating with terrorists, there's not going to be anything on the surface. But underneath, the Nigerians clearly have contacts into Boko Haram. They know some of the leadership. They know who is around that organization. And in that sense, they, I would expect, are sending out feelers. What are some ways to possibly get past this crisis? But I think it's very, very unlikely that there would be any large-scale release or any release of prisoners. I think that would really undercut the position of President Jonathan, and as you said in your opening, it would make him incredibly weak to actually put Boko Haram on the same level and do some sort of prisoner for kidnapped girls hostage exchange.
Well, in terms of the U.S. helping, or how much this U.S. team augments the ability of the Nigerians to get those girls back, to what extent are American officials bound to take steps that are suggested by, or at least approved by, Nigeria? I mean, to what extent can the U.S. team members here, and I'm thinking specifically about the FBI hostage team, if that is who's there, to what extent do we think they'll be able to act independently in the way that they think is best?
We could have the best team on the ground in the world, and we probably do, but we really can't do much of anything without Nigerian cooperation. And historically, this is the place the Nigerians have been worst. They're a very prideful country, as most countries are, and they haven't really cooperated with the U.S. to the degree we think they should have against Boko Haram and in their counterterrorism operations. So all of our expertise, the intelligence expertise, the FBI hostage rescue team, the Department of Defense special operations folks and people from AFRICOM, they probably aren't going to get access to information, access to any areas unless the Nigerians say, please come help us. So this is the classic statement. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. The Nigerians are going to let us do what they want us to do, and we're not going to force them to accept any sort of help.
Briefly, just in tactical terms, Michael, do you feel like Boko Haram is being dumb in releasing all of these video statements and continuing to be so operationally active while they continue to launch very deadly attacks? They've continued to take more girls in that part of the country. Are they giving away valuable intelligence about where they might be or how to find them by putting this stuff out there?
The video probably gave a few tips, but I think they were relatively good in trying to protect against that. And frankly, Boko Haram is simply an aggressive, deadly organization. This has captured America's and the Western public's attention, but the fact is, since 2009, this is a group that has killed thousands. They have massacred school children in other instances. So the fact is that they're willing to give up some things to make clear that they are trying to embarrass the Nigerian government, and they are trying to fight against what they view as an incredibly oppressive non-Muslim regime. So this is a long-term fight for Boko Haram, and I expect, unfortunately, regardless of what happens in this situation, Boko Haram and the violence that they're imposing on the people of Nigeria, it is going to continue.
Michael Leiter, former director of the National Counterterrorism Center. Thanks for helping us understand this, Michael. It's nice to see you. Thanks.
Thanks, Rachel.
All right. We've got lots more ahead, including stuff that's not nearly so terribly depressing, including a nice chart. Please stay with us.